10 Villains in Literature.
Literature thrives on conflict, and at the heart of many great stories lies a compelling villain. These antagonists challenge heroes, embody societal fears, and reflect the darker aspects of humanity. In many cases, they are as memorable and significant as the protagonists they oppose.
What is a villain?
A villain is typically the antagonist of a story, someone who opposes the protagonist and stands in the way of their goals. More than just an enemy, a true villain disrupts moral order, incites fear, or presents an ideological challenge. Villains provide the necessary friction that drives narrative momentum and reveals character.
Types of villains in literature.
Villains can be broadly categorized into several types. The psychopath, cold, calculating, and often lacking empathy, e.g., Iago, Voldemort. The tragic villain, shaped by trauma or circumstance, eliciting both fear and pity, e.g., Heathcliff. The authority figure represents oppressive systems or ideologies, e.g., Nurse Ratched, Big Brother. The monster, often non-human or supernatural, embodying primal fears, e.g., Dracula, Sauron. The seducer uses charm or temptation to manipulate others, e.g., the White Witch. The mastermind orchestrates chaos with intellectual prowess, e.g., Moriarty, Kaiser Soze. This video explores 10 of the most unforgettable villains in literature, drawing on critical perspectives and the texts themselves to examine what makes these characters truly villainous.
Iago Othello by William Shakespeare.
Iago is often hailed as one of the most sinister villains in literature. His manipulation of Othello and others around him is driven not by grand ambition, but by petty jealousy and malice. He admits, chillingly, "I am not what I am." Act 1, Scene 1, encapsulating his duplicitous nature. Harold Bloom, in Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human, describes Iago as a moral pyromaniac who delights in destruction. Iago preys on human weakness, insecurity, ambition, and trust, and uses them as weapons. His evil is made all the more frightening by its apparent purposelessness. Unlike Macbeth or Claudius, Iago seeks no crown, only chaos. He represents a deeply psychological villain, someone who hides in plain sight, warps perceptions, and creates havoc through words alone. His final silence, "From this time forth, I never will speak word," Act 5, Scene 2, is a final act of control.
Lord Voldemort Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling.
Tom Riddle's metamorphosis into Lord Voldemort is a modern exploration of the classical theme of the corrupting pursuit of power. Voldemort's fear of death leads him to create Horcruxes, splitting his soul in an attempt to live forever. In The Psychology of Harry Potter, Benjamin, 2007, scholars argue that Voldemort exhibits clear psychopathic traits, lacking empathy and remorse. Rowling herself has described him as a raging psychopath, devoid of the normal human responses to other people's suffering. Voldemort's ideology promotes purity of blood and domination by magical elites. His use of propaganda, torture, and terror mimic historical fascist regimes. He is not only a personal antagonist to Harry, but a metaphorical stand-in for authoritarianism, racial supremacy, and genocide. His villainy is absolute, with no redemption arc, which serves to sharpen the contrast with morally ambiguous characters like Snape or Draco.
Professor Moriarty, The Sherlock Holmes Stories by Arthur Conan Doyle.
Though appearing in only a few stories, Professor Moriarty's shadow looms large over the Holmes canon. He is the intellectual equal of Holmes, but where Holmes uses his intellect for good, Moriarty uses his to orchestrate crime. In the annotated Sherlock Holmes by William S. Baring Gould, Moriarty is described as the spider at the center of a vast criminal web. He is a villain who operates with methodical detachment, using layers of criminal agents to insulate himself from consequence. His climactic confrontation with Holmes at Reichenbach Falls, the final problem, sets a new standard for the hero-villain showdown. He exemplifies the criminal mastermind whose intellect, more than violence, is his greatest weapon.
Count Dracula Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Count Dracula is the quintessential vampire, a figure who has transcended the Gothic novel to become a cultural icon. His villainy lies not only in his bloodlust, but in his eerie charisma. Stoker paints Dracula as both alluring and horrifying, a predator cloaked in civility. In Reading the Vampire by Ken Gelder, Dracula is analyzed as a figure who represents fears of immigration, disease, and sexual deviance, an outsider threatening Victorian norms. He violates physical boundaries, the body, social norms, marriage, and religious taboos, crosses holy water. His ability to control minds and shapeshift makes him a metaphor for invasive ideologies and infectious terror. Dracula's ability to pass as human while committing monstrous acts is perhaps his most chilling feature.
Nurse Ratched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey.
Nurse Ratched represents the bureaucratic evil of institutional power. Calm, composed, and ruthlessly manipulative, she maintains control through psychological intimidation rather than physical violence. In Madness and Civilization by Michel Foucault, institutions like the one Nurse Ratched runs are explored as mechanisms of control. Ratched is a manifestation of this idea, enforcing conformity and crushing individuality. Her method of tyranny is quiet but deeply dehumanizing. She emasculates the men in her ward, shaming them into submission. She weaponizes shame, guilt, and routine. Her battle with McMurphy is a war between order and chaos, system and spirit.
Big Brother 1984 by George Orwell.
Big Brother is not a character in the traditional sense, but a symbol of totalitarian control. He is everywhere and nowhere, a figurehead for the omnipresent surveillance and thought control in Orwell's dystopia. Big Brother is watching you encapsulates the fear of constant monitoring. In The Road to 1984 by George Woodcock, Big Brother is seen as a psychological weapon used to destroy individuality and enforce conformity. Through mechanisms like the thought police, newspeak, and doublethink, Big Brother doesn't just control behavior, he controls reality itself. Winston's ultimate betrayal and psychological destruction prove that resistance under such a regime is futile. Big Brother stands as a chilling warning about authoritarianism, censorship, and the manipulation of truth.
Sauron, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Sauron's evil is vast and impersonal, a dark force seeking dominion over Middle-earth. Though he rarely appears in person, his presence is felt everywhere, in the corrupted landscapes, in the fearful hearts of men, and through the One Ring. In The Monsters and the Critics by Tolkien himself, the author discusses the nature of evil as a force that corrupts. Sauron is the embodiment of that idea, a tyrant who wants control over all life. His villainy is mythic in scale. He doesn't desire riches or revenge. He seeks complete submission. The Eye of Sauron is a constant psychological presence, much like Big Brother, and serves as a metaphor for total surveillance and moral decay.
Heathcliff Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
Heathcliff is a complex figure, both victim and villain. Orphaned and abused, he becomes cruel and vengeful, ruining lives in his obsessive pursuit of revenge and lost love. In The Madwoman in the Attic, by Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar, Heathcliff is analysed as a Byronic hero, dark, passionate and destructive. His moral ambiguity makes him a fascinating villain. He treats Hindley, Isabella, and even the next generation as pawns in a long game of vengeance. Yet, readers often sympathise with him, complicating the binary of good and evil. Heathcliff challenges us to consider how pain can distort love, and how obsession can mutate into cruelty.
The White Witch, The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis.
The White Witch, Jadis, casts Narnia into perpetual winter, symbolizing stagnation and tyranny. Her rule is absolute, and her use of fear and manipulation makes her a formidable foe. In The Narnian, The Life and Imagination of C.S. Lewis by Alan Jacobs, the White Witch is described as a figure of ultimate temptation, offering Edmund Turkish delight and the illusion of power. Her powers include turning creatures to stone and perverting the natural order. She embodies false promises and the seduction of selfishness. Aslan's sacrifice reveals her as a figure of injustice who must be overcome not just by strength, but by selflessness and love.
Kaiser Soze, The Usual Suspects, screenplay by Christopher McQuarrie.
Though technically from a screenplay rather than a novel, Kaiser Soze has become a legendary figure in storytelling. His mythos overshadows his reality, and the fear he inspires is more powerful than his actual presence. In Postmodern Theory and Blade Runner by Lewis Call, Soze is used as a metaphor for the construction of myth and the fluidity of identity. The line, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist," sums up his elusive nature. Soze operates like a ghost story, a legend designed to manipulate. His actions are extreme, killing his own family to send a message, but it's the ambiguity of his existence that makes him chilling. He represents fear itself and how myth can be more powerful than truth. These villains, diverse in their motivations and methods, serve as essential counterpoints to their respective protagonists. They challenge readers to explore themes of morality, power, control, and identity. Whether through manipulation, violence, or systemic oppression, each of these characters reveals a facet of the human capacity for darkness. And that, ultimately, is what makes them unforgettable.